My name is Karan Karai, as you all might or might not know. And on behalf of the Economic Times, I'd like to welcome all of you to this virtual roundtable discussion. It's going to be an essential part in the build-up to the Economic Times Supply Chain Management and Logistics Virtual Summit that's going to be held in June. Today, we'll be exploring a world of innovation that promises to transform the supply chain domain and to reset growth trajectories. We'll be looking at remodeling the supply chain from an e-commerce perspective in these turbulent times. And so we'll be gazing into the crystal ball, foretell what lies in store for this particular sector that's bound to really kick off now that all of us are stuck at home for one reason or the other and can't quite get out. We need to embrace digital, most of us have, and supply chains, of course, remain critically important for companies at this point in time. As is the case with most companies, the pandemic is testing the resilience of our supply chains as never before, and the consequences of how the supply chains are designed and operated will take years to play out. However, it's quite clear that e-commerce stands to gain a lot from these times that we are going through, and this transformation could possibly end up shaping a far more resilient supply chain than what we ever had before. In light of all of this, we're going to have Saurav speak with us. Saurav is a partner at PwC India. He's part of the management consulting practice at PwC. He specializes in operations and supply chain management and leads a team of consultants who focus on strategic sourcing, digital supply chain and analytics, and cost transformation. He advises clients across sectors such as consumer, industrial, automotive, e-commerce, and so on and so forth on critical matters towards improving operational performance, EV, ITDA improvement, and much more. So he's here with us to set the tone. Enough from me. Let's hear from Saurav, who will be moderating the roundtable that follows after this as well. Saurav, over to you.
Thank you so much, Karan, and good afternoon, everyone. Karan, just a quick check. My sound is absolutely clear, and video is also all right.
Yes, sound and video is clear.
Okay, superb. Thank you. So, gentlemen, really, it's a pleasure to be part of this discussion today, and moderating the roundtable. The topic, of course, is remodeling supply chain in turbulent times, and the focus today is e-commerce. At PwC, I mean, Karan did introduce myself, but then maybe I've met some of you. Just building on that, I do work in the area of supply chain transformation, and I've worked with some of the biggies as well in India in the last few years as well. So I do work across sectors, and I do work with. I know there's a gentleman from TVS as well, so I do work with the logistics 3PL players as well as part of my role at PwC. So what I'm going to be doing is before we really start, some quick rules of the discussion, the way I thought we can do it, and I'm happy to hear any inputs, feedback from you. So of course I will contextualize, I will run the discussion, I'll have a set of questions which possibly some of you would have also seen in the email that I sent out a few days back. So largely the idea is to focus on the key challenges, issues, really surviving the crisis. And now we are already 2 months into it. Most of you have, I'm sure, taken a number of steps to mitigate those challenges, address those on a day-to-day basis, all the firefighting that happened. And subsequently, really get into the future. Maybe we will all do some, crystal gazing and see that, what really, the future holds for all of us. I know, and we all know, COVID, as all the newspapers, media, even medical fraternity, all they're talking about is COVID is here to stay, and it's not going anywhere, and it's going to be a part and parcel of the way we live, the way we work, etc. So, and therefore there is no point in really trying to figure out whether it's going to be U-shaped recovery, V-shaped, W-shaped, L-shaped. So there are many such curves and shapes that we all keep on talking about, and consultants are also to be blamed for that. So I think instead of really focusing on when will COVID get over, but assuming this is going to be all around us, it has impacted all of our lives, professional, personal, etc. There's a new normal as we talk about. So how the e-commerce world is going to change? What are the new things you feel are really going to change the way your business model, operating model, supply chain operations, would get impacted in the future. So really, I think that's what we will also focus on. I believe we've got about 90 odd minutes for this discussion. And I am really looking forward to hearing a lot of insights from all of you and practical situations, issues, day-to-day challenges, and solutions as well. If you have any specific, I would say, instance to quote, please feel free to do that. I think the way I really looking at today's discussion is it should really be an insightful discussion, an engaging discussion, and also if we can all learn from each other's experiences and get some takeaways out of it, out of this 90 minutes of time we all are spending together. I think my job will be done, and as much as I'm also looking forward to learning from all of you, panel members. So quickly, just touching upon the group that I have, and so that I don't miss out on anyone, just in case. We have Prakash Kumar Datta, Director Supply Chain from Amazon. I see Prakash there. Then we have Sarvartha Kanchan, Head of Supply Chain, Snabil. Sarvartha, you there? Yeah, I can see you. KV Nagaraju, Chief Customer Experience Officer, Big Basket. Okay, I see Mr. Nagaraju as well. Rohit Sharma, Head of Supply Chain, Grofers. Rohit, okay, yeah, you there. Great to see you. Sahil Madan, Head of Growth and Strategy, Milk Basket. Is Sahil there on the call? Maybe Sahil hasn't joined as yet, looks like. So maybe once he joins, we will get him into the conversation. Then we have Akshay Singh, Vice President, Strategy and Enterprise, Broom. Akshay there? Yeah, great.
Hi all.
Jasmeet Singh, hi. Jasmeet Singh Marwa, Senior Director, Supply Chain, Moglix. I can see you.
Hi guys.
Great. Sebastian Derek, GM, TVS Logistics Services.
Hi, good afternoon,
Derek,
everybody.
are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, hi Derek.
Hi.
Good to see you. And lastly, Amit Gupta, Solutions Director, Anaplan. Amit is also there.
Hi.
Okay, so we're anyone? Did I miss out any name by any chance? Hopefully not. So we have only Rohit Sharma from Grofers missing as no, Rohit is there. Sorry, Sahil Madan from Milk Basket not in the conversation, but maybe as he joins, we will take him on board. So just without much ado, let me just get started with sharing some quick context and thoughts. Even though I did talk about it a bit earlier, I think the way even at PwC and in my experience working with clients across the board, B2B, B2C, and then some of the e-commerce companies, technology players, we do see that even prior to this whole pandemic and then the way the whole world was evolving, and also India, e-commerce was becoming pretty much a inherent part of Indians and Indian households. However, I think the way I see pandemic doing is that it's really going to make e-commerce really an essential service, if I can use that word, although it also tends to get into a bit controversial zone given what we've gone through in the last few weeks and months. So I think what definitely is going to happen is, as consumers, the discomfort that they will have in terms of visiting stores because of safety, hygiene, and many of those issues, I think is really going to be cushioned by the e-commerce. And then some of you are, coming in from the big names in the industry. The biggest question, therefore, continues to be, would both, consumers feel safe enough to venture out, even though lockdown possibly may get, opened up after end of May. But would consumers feel safe going out? I think that's one big aspect I see. Second is, till so far, a lot of e-commerce play was also around price, and variety of products, SKUs that you would have on each of the categories online. So the discounts, of course. So is the decision the way Indian consumer, would look at, some of these e-commerce sites and looking to buy various kind of products? Is it going to move beyond that? Is it going to be about convenience? Is it going to be about safety? Is it going to be about the product journey itself? And then some of those factors, of course, building on maybe the past. Second is the other aspect, of course, is the whole the experience of the consumer. And I do understand from what I've also gone through in my personal journey in the last few months is, I think the expectation of the same day delivery, 24-hour, particular time slot delivery, and the whole piece around that is also possibly changed. I think consumer at least in the last 2 months, and even myself, has become a lot more flexible till the time I'm going to get the product, fulfilling a lot of other parameters that I spoke about earlier. I'm fine with getting it after 3 days, 4 days, 5 days as well, unless it's not an absolute necessity. So I think some of those aspects, I just wanted to open up with, and maybe I can start with Mr. Prakash Datta. A question to you, specifically coming in from Amazon, and all the issues you would have also faced during the lockdown, Mr. Datta. I just would like to really know any specific insights around day-to-day handling of those issues, the way the government regulations evolved, the way the lockdown was put in place within a span of few hours. And I'm sure all of a sudden, for an organization like Amazon to shut down its operations would have been a big task. Mr. Datta, your thoughts on that?
Hey, hi. Yeah, good that I'm starting off with this. Yeah, obviously it is not going to be easy. It was a very difficult situation. And as soon as we faced this, it was kind of a roller coaster, right? But it's been an extremely amazing, humbling experience to see the way our teams have responded to the situation. The way they went about the innovations across various teams, right? They needed to get on with how do we deliver to the customers at the time of need. We strongly believe that this is the time that e-commerce needs to step up to keep our customers safe. We strongly believe that we need to keep our associates and employees safe. That was the priority that we were focusing on. That was the first thing that we needed to keep. If we are not keeping this basic premise on, it was going to be very difficult for us to sustain and get on with the business. And that was the first thing we focused around before getting on with the normal operations or scaling of operations. And we made, I don't know how many, but more than 100 operation process changes for the associates to be kept safe in the warehouses, in the fulfillment centers, in the sort centers, in the delivery stations, in the cafeterias of the places. We use technology as a big enabler to be able to keep the associates safe. There were mandatory stuff which was there in terms of the PPEs that they needed to have, face coverings, thermal screening, contactless deliveries. We took time to be able to do that, but yes, we started off, we wanted to keep our people safe. Now coming back to your initial question about, technology played an important role. Let me put it that way. It played an important role to be able to be flexible and agile. So different states were coming with different kind of guidelines to be able to do where we can deliver essentials or we can't deliver non-essentials. And basically technology played an important role in terms of guiding us through that. It was very, very clear. And one of the key, that was an enabler. There was another aspect which was, I'm sure that everybody must have gone through that problem about the unprecedented labor availability, which happened across the industry, not only within e-commerce. And our focus was through the lockdown was to establish contact with the associates. It was very important that we get into touch with the associates, ensure that they are safe, provide that guidance on health benefits that are available to them, and assure them and their families about, I just mentioned, more than 100 process changes we made in our operations. So so these are high-level comments that I have in terms of how we went about. But yes, very importantly, technology played a very, very important role. Just summarizing, the safety of customers and associates, that's critical, absolutely critical. These two were big enablers for us to get back to business.
Great. Thanks, Prakash. Definitely, I think focus on safety and assuring the workforce, because we all went through that whole scenario where, as much as there was a lockdown, but, as possibly you got a chance to resume your operation, the workforce wasn't available in adequate numbers. And of course, on top of that, even if they were available, there was a huge concern of stepping out, right? And getting infected. So, and that continues to be there as well. Let me turn to Sarvartha Kanchan, from Snapdeal. Sarvartha, what have been some of your learnings while handling this whole lockdown issues? And I think specifically also the way, I know your product portfolio is possibly a little different, and maybe food and grocery is not there, but then this whole essential, non-essential, how did it impact you? And, and how did you also work through the whole workforce availability issues in your FC, or working with your sellers, or you're working with your logistics partners?
Yeah, I mean, 2-3 questions. I'll start with the first one. I think,
Sure.
the whole ambiguity that was around the essential and non-essential category definitions that came from the MHA kind of added to the chaos. But at the same time, I think the first time, from a top management perspective, people would have understood the importance of serviceability file, right? A serviceability file which basically defines which customers and which zones will be serviced what products. I think this is something that was maintained by a team which works at the back end, and they just keep taking care of that list as and when things change. But during this pandemic, what happened is all of a sudden the entire technology pivoted around how we define our serviceabilities, how do we define product categories that are essential, which product categories will be serviced in which zones, which sections of the country, depending on the overall regulations that we had. So yes, I think there was a lot of effort. The entire model was kind of changed in terms of how we were looking at categories and how we used to classify products, all of that. Right? The entire ecosystem in terms of how we used to manage our partner serviceabilities and our self-serviceabilities changed overnight. It took us some time, to be very honest. It couldn't be done like in a flash, but it took us some time to actually give it a thought and actually build it in a way that it's flexible even for future. Because we knew that this kind of the situation where we are in today, right? I mean, all of a sudden, Jharkhand comes up and says only essentials, no more non-essentials. So, I mean, there are so many things that keep happening on a day-to-day basis, and hence it was important that technology and design kind of comes together and sets up the supply chain wherein there is, as Prakash said, flexibility. At the same time, a lot of reliability in terms of ensuring that we are compliant with the regulations. Right? It needed to be pivoted overnight in a very different way and structured in a very different way. Having said that, I think I actually like the first 3 points that you mentioned. I mean, will our customers venture out? And the question would be, will we venture out? Will we go to the shopping malls and the complexes and buy stuff? I don't think I will. And hence I feel my customers also won't do the same. Hence the entire ecosystem is going to shift towards e-commerce, and ensuring safety and assuring predictable and reliable performances is going to be the key, the way we are kind of structuring the whole supply chain. And workforce availability was a challenge. I mean, it's something that everyone will say. So I don't want to repeat myself, but I think ensuring that people are given the hope that proper care has been taken and proper safety measures have been taken. As Prakash said, more than 100, I'm sure there will be hundreds of such changes that would have happened on the floor, which ensured that people feel safe and they feel secure in terms of coming and doing their day-to-day job, because ultimately their life is also at stake. They also can be those walking mass carrier of destruction also, for all you know, right? I mean, if there are delivery agents who are delivering goods to every house, carrying such a virus with them, it's going to be a disaster for e-commerce. So yeah, I mean, a lot of precautions, a lot of things done at the background to ensure that things do work the way they have worked out. And a strong applause again to my team as well, and all the teams who are working on the ground in these situations. I think they're the real heroes, and they're making sure that we are able to deliver what we are able to today.
No, great. Thanks, Anata. Definitely, I'm sure, it was very dynamic situation, and it required all of us to be on top of the day-to-day changes that were happening in the ecosystem. It's definitely unprecedented. So clearly there is no playbook one could refer to to deal with this kind of scenario that happened over the last couple of months. So I'm sure the learnings that you shared are helpful, and it will also, I think I like your point of that a lot of what you did was also to was not just for here and now, but also to build more flexibility for future. And surely I think that's an important aspect of any organization, and I'm sure as an e-commerce organization, if you've taken steps in that direction, they're going to hold you in good stead even going forward. Let me turn to Mr. Nagaraju. Big basket. Definitely, you came to the rescue for a lot of us, and I would say the cities that you serve in. Clearly, you are your product portfolio is largely essentials, food and grocery, personal care, and so on and so forth. So, Mr. Keshri, did you also really adjust your supply chain? I understand the issues. Both we heard from Sarvata and Mr. Datta around the issues, and issues are well known now. Of workforce, all of a sudden, shut down and so on and so forth. Let me not. But in terms of your ability to bounce back, you think some of your earlier processes that were in play or were, existing processes helped you, or did you also have to go about really making, significant changes in your operating model or your supply chain operations the way, it was happening earlier?
Okay, thanks, Sava. You're able to hear me?
Yes, absolutely clear.
You can.
Please go ahead.
Right, thanks. Thanks a lot. And I also like the way the whole discussion is building up like a story. Yes, I just want to quickly touch upon the earlier points. Our colleagues on the discussion pointed out, we also faced the initial problem of sudden disappearance of blue-collar workforce because most of them were very confused by the government guideline that you have to stay at home and then it's not safe, and a lot of uncertainty about what is this whole corona all about. So we also lost quite a lot of people right in the beginning, right? So that left us really little exposed. As you rightly said, the good part was Big Basket was in a unique position because we are essentially focused on food and grocery as a company, which is essentials. And almost right in the beginning, the government agencies, whether it is Chief Secretary's office mainly, or even from the center, they have approached us and said that we have to play an important role now in ensuring supplies to homes in all the 26 cities where we are operating. So therefore, we didn't have a big problem in our business model or the volume right from the day one, but our abilities to service the number of orders was initially surely was an issue. So what we did was just to make sure that we ensure that whoever is with us already are taken care, like others who said earlier. We also went through a whole host of safety-related precautions, training all across in more than 150 of our facilities. And we had to buy on an urgent basis all the PPEs and new processors, thermal screening. All those things were done just to ensure that whoever we have with us are feeling good and safety. We also did a lot of communication to them to ensure that they are with us. But the main issue was like on the last mile delivery initially, because while the government allowed us, we still faced quite a lot of problem in the initial areas because there was a lag in the communications which flowed down from the senior civil servants and the police commissioners down to the local area. So in many places now our people were stopped and we had to again get back and all that. So it took almost a week or 10 days before government itself grouped together many of us, including many of us who are on this panel itself, including Grofers, Milk Basket, Amazon and all. So we all formed groups in each of the cities, WhatsApp groups with police commissioners and other things, so that things became a little more organized to make deliveries. Now, coming to your main point, whether it was from a process point, was it exactly the same or whether we had to do something? So in our case, I think the key focus on was on how do you manage more volumes with less people. So there was, therefore, we had to really do some very quick, value stream mapping across all our processes and see what all we can do. So we identified some 10, 12 key projects which were, using digital and, some little bit of innovation in work processes, and also using some from analytics wherever we needed some data, etc. And we had to really push through these features or, process improvements on a very, very urgent basis. That is something which we did, essentially to make sure that we are able to develop or deliver more volume with less number of people, basically improving productivity in every level of our operation. That we had to do very, very urgent basis. The second point was coming to the last mile delivery also. In the phase, I would say from the first lockdown almost till middle of April or even end of April, the availability of transportation resources were also quite limited. Now we had certain bikers and all that, but when we came to, let's say, vans or drivers, the availability was not always very clear. So there again, we went to the drawing board to see what is that we can do. Just to share one example, during lockdown period, we found out, for example, that travel speeds are better because the roads were almost empty. So earlier assumptions in our transportation algorithms, where we had to take certain number of time to deliver one order, when we really looked into the thing, we realized that actually each trip was much shorter. They are able to come back faster. So that insight helped us to really say that why don't we increase the number of hours, from since anyway, as I think someone else pointed out, customers were not really demanding slot-wise deliveries, while Big Basket is very well known for slot-wise right from last 8 years. We said, why don't we stress the slots from 2 hours, maybe 4 hours, 3.5 hours in each of the city, depending upon the local requirement. That was one. And use the fact that now we can deliver more orders within the same time because the traffic parameters are far, far better. So we started therefore using slightly bigger vans, for example. So therefore use a bigger van, use the entire time available since the speeds are better, and contactless delivery also meant the customer was not spending much time at the customer place. Earlier, a Big Basket guy would actually go ring the bell, go inside, spread out all the products and give a list to the lady, and then we tick it off. So in the contactless, we avoided that. So that service time at the customer place was also a little reduced. So we use these insights to actually look at our transportation, how to use a bigger vehicle, and then improve those processes. This was one example. And I would also can share one more example where, for example, we realized that since the customers are willing to wait in a day and not necessarily in a slot, then we said, why don't we make consolidated deliveries in large apartment complexes, right? So then we found out from our customer records that it is possible to find out who are all our customers in a particular apartment complex in each of the cities. And then we started sending specific communication to them saying that, are they willing to accept delivery at on a particular day or maybe alternate day, etc. And then telling them to place orders accordingly, so that we have the benefit of aggregation of orders and they have the benefit of surety of supplies, right? So this is another thing we looked at. So like this, if you look at it, actually, it has been a great time actually. Sometimes when these kind of adversities hit us, where you need to deliver more because all customer orders were not the problem, but actually your ability to deliver, we had to really stretch our imagination and then look into all our processes to make them more efficient, more productive, and then use all the digital and technology wherever possible. I think it was a great time. And the second part is most of our engineers in tech and engineering were actually working from home because the offices were closed. However, we found out that all of these guys are really recent to the occasion, as I'm sure it's the same in other companies as well. And they were able to deliver many of these features in a record time. What used to earlier take a typical funnel to come out after 4 to 6 weeks, we were able to get these features done in about 2 to 3 weeks. So really, I think the whole organization pushed itself to get to a different level of performance in terms of meeting the problem set which we were facing. I think I will pass it
Sure.
this.
No, thank you, Mr. Nagaraju. Great insights. Looks like you have made, I would say, or created a lot of opportunities out of this whole crisis for yourself. And seems like you've really reset the ways of working, and maybe looking at increasing the volumes, with lesser number of people, productivity impact, rolling out features, on the platform itself, the ID platform that you said, it's superb, and I think that's the whole idea that I think I'm sure all of us across the different organizations that all of us represent. As much as there is an adversity, but I think there is an opportunity as well, and some of these learnings would again be very useful maybe in the future as well for maybe any other kind of issues or challenges that we may come across. Let me move to now Rohit. Rohit, at Grofers, I'm sure you've heard others. Again, you are also in a similar category, essentials largely, and again, you also came to the rescue, as just the local Kirana stores also came to the rescue, for a lot of people in different cities, because they got some permissions to operate, etc. as well. Now, in your experience as well, two points and two questions possibly for you. One, this whole consumer experience, order backlog, and I've seen personally myself as well, orders, let's say the due date or the delivery timeline is 10-15 days away, the day you book it. So the whole order backlog, the wait happened, and therefore consumers also getting adjusted to it, and even for you to really make sure that you fulfill orders as per the commitment. Second is product unavailability. A lot of SKUs were in short supply, and therefore not available to customers. And then many other issues of refunds, returns, etc. How did you deal with those, and what kind of opportunities did you create for yourself in this period? Rohit, I mean, this question is for you.
Yeah, so sort of, actually, Mr. Nagaraju kind of summed up our side of the picture, right? Very, very similar. Right? We struggled initially, and so it's important to understand why the order backlog actually got built up in the first place. Unlike practically any other industry, right? We very early on got classified as essentials. The police machinery, the administration swung, very rapidly. Actually reached out, right? So and proactively, like I know we had the Lucknow District Commissioner of Police actually checking why are your promise times running above 48 hours. Right? So why can't you deliver orders that you take today? Why can't you deliver them tomorrow? And so we had to share a small crash course in this is how order backlogs get built up. But see, there are two parts to the narrative, right? India is a huge, great country, right? To get a nuance like essential, non-essential, understood by the last standing man on the street in a uniform, right? By the last cop there. In the best times, it will take 15 to 20 days, right? I think we did great, right? As a country, we did brilliant, right? And so we got back on our feet pretty quickly, right? And then we realized that despite all the hype that surrounds online commerce, we are still about 2-3% of the total market size. The other 97% was still and continues to be served largely by offline players. When this 3% turns to 10% overnight, most supply chains end up building order backlogs. So we came under pressure there as well. I mean, in the first 10-15 days, we actually had to set aside different time windows for different cities, so that not everyone was jumping onto the platform at the same time, right? We had to basically, operate like a fair price shop, separate quotas so that we could, because bandwidth isn't unlimited, but India's population can test the best of websites and their resilience, right? But over a period of time, 2 or 3 themes emerged, right? And you summed it up yourself pretty nicely, Saurabh. The emphasis shifted from the speed of the service or the delivery cost associated with the service. Completely, it shifted from speed and cost over to reliability. Customers were okay with, so customers were saying commit and deliver, right? Now I'm willing to give you a long stretch on that commit, right? So you can go 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, right? And we will be patient. So speed doesn't really matter right now, right? But don't tell me on the 6th day that you are now not going to be able to deliver, because then, that customer is going to penalize you. Not very proud of this fact, but I think, in the first week or so of April, pretty much everywhere, I know all of us had to go back to our customers in some areas which are particularly badly hit, and we had to tell our customers, hey, we will not be able to carry this backlog on, right? So I think that so we took that tough call, and by 5th or 6th of April, I think the systems were back on track, and we did a lot of stuff to mitigate the waiting times for customers. So apart from so we opened out, our founder Albi Singh Jinsa, he sent out an open tweet to all RWAs saying, if you are struggling to get your supplies, the groceries, let us know and we will help you. We basically set up a roster, right? By the way, across the industry, collaboration was also pretty amazing at this time. So we worked with another partner service called MyGate. MyGate is a very popular service down south in particular. And so we worked with them, and to cut a long story short, within a week or so, we had about 1,000 RWAs signed up with their own neat little slots worked out every second day, every third day in some cases. In Mumbai, actually, to start with, it was once in 7 days, right? And people are still happy to just have somebody reliably, safely, in a contactless manner, accepting digital payments, right? Deliver good quality products. So it was humbling, right? That at the end of the day, all service pivots on reliability. You commit and you deliver. At time can be stretched a little. Cost of 15 rupee here or 20 rupee there doesn't matter. So the other huge innovation that we brought to the table was, we did containerized deliveries. So if you order from grocers today, what you will see is all your groceries will come in a nice biodegradable plastic bag, right?
Yeah.
Properly sealed, which can actually be left outside your doorstep, and you don't have to worry about the cat getting to some of the items before you, right? But not just that, right? What it did is, and Mr. Nagaraju talked about the reduced service time at the doorstep. In our case, this service time went to 0, basically. So just drop and go, right? So our delivery partners were able to, and we had been cooking this for a long time in our innovation labs, but the COVID pandemic allowed us to take it from a pilot which we were running in Delhi and Bangalore, and take it to pan India, like 32 cities. So and small towns like Agra, Aligarh, Allahabad, of course bigger ones, Chandigarh, Jaipur, Lucknow, Delhi, Kolkata. We went containerized deliveries 100% of the time. And our mission was to keep the customer safe and keep our employees safe, because it's only when both are safe that we can take any kind of guarantee that we are not becoming perpetrators of this disease. So I think, so that's how we, so I talked about the society model. I talked about how containerized deliveries meant that, one guy who was able to do maybe 25 deliveries in a day earlier was able to do 55, 60 deliveries in a day. Of course, carriage size, also matters. So we also got lucky in a number of places, right? We had started on this journey of electrification of our last mile vehicles. Long before there were catchy videos, with someone, obviously it's all good, right? Because I believe the lesser fossil fuel vehicles we leave on the roads out there, the better a planet we leave for our progeny. We've been at it for about a year. So about 30% of our total last mile fleet was already electric vans. And we were going for higher spec, right? Higher capacity vans. I think they came in at just the right time, right? So in cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, Gurgaon, we were able to get off to a flyer because these vans came in just at the, I think another 3 weeks later, and most of these lithium-ion batteries are manufactured in China, by the way, right? So we would have been constrained by something that. So the right vehicles came in, our containerization product. All this meant that we were able to basically double up on our delivery per person. Where we struggled, and we continue to struggle in a few cities today, like in Mumbai, is on the warehouse side, right? So as migrant labor started leaving from all parts of the country, and as COVID-19 became more widespread in areas in and around Mumbai, right? So most of our warehouses, I believe, most of the people who are present here will have at least one warehouse in Bhiwandi. It's the Waterloo of all supply chain professionals, the way that I look at it. Yeah, none of your rules of common decency or gentlemanly behavior apply in Bhiwandi, right? Irrespective, I was horrified to read an article once which tried to paint Bhiwandi as like the mecca of e-commerce. My apologies. It's the Waterloo of all supply chain professionals. You learn your IR basics there, or you get very, very, very solid, strong refresh. Anyway, so Bhiwandi also happened to have a lot of coronavirus cases, and that area is already complicated. Right? Every panchayat, sarpanch, is a prime minister in his own domain there, right? So you're dealing with about 30 different entities who have to be pleased, so that it's like the tongue between 32 teeth, right? And you had a 33rd big monster coming in the shape of COVID. Really, really struggled there, and I think that's a snapshot of what happens when the state machinery, the local politicians, the local ecosystem just doesn't click in, right? That people don't have an appreciation for how to deal with a crisis. So I think there's a reason why Mumbai has such high cases, right? There's a certain amount of dysfunction in the way that area has, but it also tells you how supply chains can be hit, and how severe the hit can be once the virus, proliferates beyond a certain point, right? So in a way, it's also a test case for us. And so for about a full month, Mumbai tested us until we finally figured out, how to really get reliable manpower, right? And keep it there. I'll not take you into do some details of operating there, but that's let me switch to the so on order backlog, bigger vehicles, RWAs. We also did something pretty brave in hindsight. We said, if warehouses in Mumbai are not able to process orders because the local villagers won't allow people from other villages to come in, we still need to serve our customers. We set up dark stores based out of our delivery hubs in the city with like less than 100 SKUs. So 100 items: atta, dal, chawal, mustard oil, ghee, very limited assortment. I mean, I remember, entering this discussion where people are saying, Maggie, of course, clearly makes it, right? But does pasta make it? And yeah, but so it was about, the boat can only support 5 people, so the 6th guy has to go overboard, right? Because these are really small places. We did this, and these dark stores have probably been the lifeline for locality after locality in Mumbai. Right? I mean, we had to do thrice a day replenishment. Thrice a day, we had to send more stock to these dark stores. None of us believed so. Retail is around three core pillars, right? Which is service, selection, and price. I've already talked about service having deteriorated to say once in 3 days, once in 7 days in some areas. Selection getting down to just 100 items, right? And prices. And I'll come to that when I talk about product availability. Right? We need to have products to be able to sell them, right? There were strains on that side as well. So prices had hardened across the market. This pandemic just told you that if you have stock available and if you are reliable in the sense that once you commit, you deliver, there is still a business to be run. It was, of course, we would much rather operate in a hyper-competitive market. Right?
Yes.
Right. I do not personally enjoy the customer being constrained in his choices. Right. So we would love the customer to have 20 choices, right? And we would then back ourselves to be the best amongst those choices. Operating in this, duopoly kind of a situation where there are there is either the local kirana guy or us, right? In several areas, right? That's no fun, right? The last thing that I would say is, having been on the e-commerce side for a long time, you tend to think of e-commerce as really bigger than what it actually is. I'm humbled by the fact that the local kirana guy managed his availability, right? And I'll make a statement which hopefully doesn't become an inadvertent headline. They manage their availability better than some of the big majors that you're talking to, right? I take my hat off to them. Right? Those guys know their business, right? Anybody saying the days of the local kirana are over, take a walk. I'm not believing you. Right? Those guys serve 95% of India with some aplomb, right? They survived, they thrived, and just like we say that our troops had to be brave to go out there, it took bravery for the local mom and pop store to open out as well. Right? For the chotu that works in that store to get in there and carry your Bisleri water bottles to your home. Right? They did that, right? And without making too much of a song and dance about it. They fashioned good old fashioned masks, right? So my respect for that network is actually one notch higher. I also know that despite this respect, right, people who had an option, people who had a choice, people had a legitimate choice that they could choose between an online service and a local kirana. They did tilt towards the online service, right? So of course, history will put a footnote, around how this moment kind of marked the turning of the tide against them, right? But living today, I think we need to acknowledge that these guys are an incredibly important part of the local ecosystem, and in fact we learned. So our dark stores are basically a kirana store that is not open to customers. It's basically that model, right? We are trying to be as frugal, as customer centric, as responsive to the customer as the local kirana guy, right? If something isn't available and someone is looking for it, guess what? 3 days later, it will be available, right? So that's what we are trying to do, right? So, coming and jumping over to the product availability issue. So the labor problem that we were facing, manufacturers were facing the same exact problem, Biggies, right? Large company saw production dip by as much as 50% for a week or so.
Yeah.
Now the channel is typically full of inventory, right? And so for a while, it was great, right? Because there's trouble, but I'm still getting my stuff, right? We placed an order for say 10 lakh packs of Maggie. 10 lakh packs of Maggie arrived, right? Because the channel does have that kind of inventory, right? Towards the second half of April, the channels finally started feeling the pinch. So now when you placed an order for 10 lakh packs of Maggie, the manufacturer started dividing the stock in the ratio of historically what has been your share in sales. And so a purchase order of 10 lakh units would sometimes net out only 6 lakh units actually delivered.
Yep.
So this metric is the fill rate metric, right, which all of us are aware of. Fill rates, my assessment, will take probably 6 months, probably 9, before they finally get back to business as usual. Right? There is serious damage in there on fill rates, and more on some of the faster moving items than on the slower moving items. How we've coped, a core part of our strategy has also been building private label brands, right? Having access to those captive manufacturing capacities meant that even if we started running out of a popular brand in one particular product type, we were able to at least have our homegrown brand substitute available there. And I think as time went by, we realized that customers were willing to make the switch if the quality was acceptable or at par. But I would say we are at about 80% normal on product availability. There are items that we would love to have, that we regularly have, right? That we absolutely want to have. The manufacturers, plants are probably not able to churn out as much as we are able to sell, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one last bit though, right? So this is where luck plays a role, right? So if you designed too lean a supply chain, right? Your days on hand, days of inventory, DOI was let's say benchmark levels like 11 days, 12 days, right? And this was 15th March. You were on top of the hill at that time. 30th March, that 12 DOI became a huge albatross around your neck, right? Huge liability. And the guy who did not focus so much on it, who had 29 days of inventory, right, was the king in it. So sometimes you also need a bit of the rub of the green going in your favor. A business is a combination of skill and luck, right?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Rohit. Again, wonderful thoughts, and I would say tons of learnings and tons of experiences you've shared. Whether it's that working closely with RWA. In fact, even where I stay in Gurgaon, even we have an MyGate app, and I remember Grofers being available through that, and not just Grofers, even newspapers, right? The Times of India you could access through your MyGate app, because newspaper delivery was also a challenge.
Yes.
And the other thing that you said, possibly people who had suboptimal supply chain, much higher levels of inventory, possibly did much better than people who were running very tight ships, the last couple of months. So maybe the game was different, the way it happened.
A typical liability, a classic liability became an asset. But that is what such events do, right? They test boundary conditions,
absolutely.
test limits.
No, they test boundary conditions, they test the fundamentals as well. I think all what we've lived with. So let me move to now, maybe just shift gears here, move to Jasmeet. I know, some of the other members have been waiting for some time. So I'll maybe come to Jasmeet now. Jasmeet, Moglix, more B2B. Again, you've heard a lot of B2C stories, experiences. But again, in your case, I'm sure the challenges would have been even multi-fold, because a lot of your customers would not be operating, while in the B2C case, end consumer was still wanting to get groceries and other necessities in place. So you must be facing a significant demand issue, also given the lockdown, and even possibly now still it's going on. And second is the category mix for Moglix. I'm hoping and assuming that you would have also looked at or seen a big shift in some of the demand for new categories coming up. Whether it's these old gloves, sanitizers, things like that. And how did you really build behind those new categories? Maybe some of those were not part of your portfolio earlier.
Yeah, so it was tougher for us. But I don't know how many of you know Moglix, but we are mostly into indirect spend for organizations. So primarily we do MRO and packaging material. And when the entire discussion on essentials came, then one category which is essentials is the entire safety category. So we had always been doing safety shoes, safety gloves, helmets for most of the industries. And so that is one category which gets into this, the essentials category, and the other one is the packaging. Though we had a hard time convincing the local authority that packaging is essential. One thing which worked for us is when this entire COVID started in China and moved to Southeast Asia and Europe. That's when most of our Indian customers with conglomerates and partners in international space, they asked us to, start fulfilling that category. So I think this was maybe early Feb when we started building that category and expertise and export. So we started exporting. So we exported to almost 20 countries. Now this was challenging because with COVID, it's not simple, because most of these items require certifications, due quality diligence, and I don't know if you know how the Indian market was, that you could get different kinds of masks from Chavdi Bazaar, ranging from 2 rupees to 20 rupees. Everyone was making masks. Yeah. I don't know. So many of my relatives called me, Jasmeet, are you exporting? Can you export for me? And it was like all over everyone was making masks. And I still remember one day I went to customs to meet the ADC. There was one issue in one of my shipments. And I remember there were so many people standing with all kinds of masks. So it was like, has this become a commodity, or, what is happening? And I think end of March, I think 18th of March, when the government banned export. So by that time, we actually had exported to almost 18 to 20 countries. So we developed that expertise, and we somehow knew that this is coming in India. Okay. And we also knew that the government is going to ban exports very soon. So that is what happened on 18th March. And we also parallelly starting building our imports capability from Korea, from Malaysia, from China. China, we all know what has happened, but there are some good suppliers in other countries. And so we built that, at least on the supply side, we strengthened that entire piece for us. And when it came to India, I think the only option for us was to do PPE as well as the packaging material, I think. So the exports helped us, but coming to India, definitely, the initial customers were the government and the hospitals and the authorities. So to get to them with the right material and with all the bureaucracy on payments and quality was tough, but it was, I think it has been a great learning. So these are the two big categories where the first category, the PP, where we actually developed expertise. I think we were quick to jump into this because of the exports we did. Once the lockdown, started, and this became an important category, I think, and we tried to strengthen the supply. And if you look at Moglix, we are present in almost like 18 to 19 cities. We are not a hyper local kind of network, and it was very important for us to do a complete risk analysis or a risk profiling of our network. Right, so we have Chennai, we have Pune, Ahmedabad, because the risk is high because we are concentrated. So if anything becomes a red zone, the impact is very high, because a smaller zone or a smaller, let's say Chennai is serving a bigger region, and then you don't have most of these category supplies everywhere across India. Okay, so that was a challenge, and we actually relocated 2 of our warehouses in this entire pandemic. I mean, the ground teams could do that successfully. I think I would give the entire credit to the teams who are working. I mean, there was no plan, there is no structure. I'm sure most of you will agree with this. This is where the local teams worked with the local police and the local authorities to make ourselves operational. I think, I don't know, see, one mantra which worked for me and at the organization, and I came across an image which showed the phases of COVID, and it showed how any person or an organization moves across 3 zones, right? The first is your fear zone, the second is the learning zone, and the third is the growth zone. Okay, so we as an organization moved from the fear to the learning and to the growth. Some took days, some took seconds, some took minutes, but it was very important for us as an organization, along with our suppliers, partners, and our customers, to move together across these 3 zones. If I look at the last 2-3 months, I would it has been extremely interesting times. I mean, these have been times where each of our supply chains have been tested, and how we monitor those, how we make changes to our entire network, to our approach, to our pricing, to our categories, and how do we make it more customer focused, and how do we react to the change in customer demand. I think we all have been tested there, and I think we all have come out beautifully out of it. Coming to your point on how the customer, I don't know about, maybe I mean, I also do essentials, shopping, and I know I have become much more, comfortable that if it's delayed by 2 days, 3 days. But if you talk about the PP side, the demand and the pressure is extremely high. Okay, so the customers are much more demanding. But I guess, I think that is interesting also, even if the customers across all the industries, if they have become less demanding, I'm sure that this will increase with time, because this is just a new world. We will continue to learn how to operate in a COVID world, how to run our transport, how to run our warehouses in this world. We all talk about 5S in warehouses. I think this is the 6th S, which is the safety. So I think this has been a great learning for us as an organization. And I mean, with everything opening up, so now the industries are opening up, so we are doing our B2B business. We have started. But if I talk about the B2B, we still don't have the contactless kind of delivery, which is very prominent in the B2C world. Because here, I know companies who are now asking for fitness certificates of their people, because they spend time in the plant, and what sort of documents they're coming up with. So those are the processes which we are trying to stabilize, right? So we all know that, the government says that you can go with the Arogya Setu app, And if you're green, then you're good. But on the ground, things are different because they're still, on the plant side, people still see outsiders as a risk. So how we develop those processes in the coming days, and how do we instill that confidence in the customers that we are taking all the safety precautions, and these are the kinds of people we are working with. I think this will be a challenge, and this is something which we need to work on immediately.
Got it.
So overall, I think it's extremely interesting, and nice stories from all of you.
Sure, Jasmeet, thanks again. Again, great insights. I like that 5 is becoming 6S, specifically what you said, and I'm sure you also can possibly look at some of the learnings coming in from the B2C world around this whole contactless fees. But I know B2B, it can be a bit more challenging because there's a clear GRN process and a whole lot of formalities that companies do while inverting any such indirect material that you guys do. Okay, let me move on to Akshay maybe first, and then I'll come to Sebastian and Derek after just hearing maybe Akshay. Akshay, Groom, I would say the complete business of yours must have come under huge stress, given that the movement stopped, the dealerships also closed, and therefore the whole interest in mobility, if I can use that word, has dipped down significantly. I think on the other side, also given this whole focus on individual safety and hygiene, maybe people looking to move away from public transport, ride sharing, etc., and then maybe looking to have their own personal transport, even though. So what is your anticipation around this whole impact of COVID on your kind of a business, and therefore is there a change in strategy or a game plan that you have?
Sure. So, just for everyone's context, I'll talk a little bit about Droom. So, Droom is primarily an online e-commerce platform where we deal with all kinds of services and products related to automobiles. So, our focus is primarily buying and selling of used vehicles, two-wheelers and four-wheelers. But we have an ecosystem of services surrounding it where we provide things like RTO services, fleet health, etc. Right. So in this context, it's what you mentioned is it is very that in April the entire market was shut down. All of our dealers could not go to work, and because of that, the business on the automobile side definitely went down close to zero. Right. However, we have already started seeing very good trends in terms of business picking up. A lot of the traffic on our website has increased. If you look at Google search trends for automobiles, used cars, etc., you'll see a very positive growth trend in the month of May. And right now, we are approximately at the same level as what we were operating at in 2019 in terms of the traffic and interest from the customers. I think where things are a little slow is for the dealers to get back into their businesses and start manning their shops and providing their automobiles. Over here, what we have seen interestingly is that new vehicle dealers, the slightly larger ones, more organized ones, we've seen a lot more action from them. And just to give some numbers, over the last 3 weeks, so we have already received close to 2 lakh listings of vehicles on our platform. But almost 90% of these are from new dealers. The used dealers have been somewhat slow to take off. I think even this week we heard that one of the dealers in Delhi's used car market, his entire family was diagnosed with COVID, and the market was shut down. So there we are seeing some fits and starts, but the used market has not picked up yet. So what are we doing in order to take care of some of these challenges? So as a company, what we are really investing into is this concept of contactless commerce. I know some of the other panelists had already spoken about some aspects of it, but when it comes to Droom, our category is very different from, let's say, groceries or something that can be delivered easily to your doorstep, right? And what we are working on very, very hard is building this concept of contactless commerce for vehicle purchasing online. So as part of this, there are a number of initiatives that we have taken. One, with our entire dealer base, we have more than like hundreds of thousands of dealers across the country. So with each one of them, what we are working on with is enabling doorstep test drive of the vehicles. And here, so far, we have seen very, very good traction. Of the 200,000 new listings that we have received over the last 3 weeks, 74% of them, dealers have offered free doorstep test drive, because the dealers also understand that, the COVID world or the post-COVID world, it's going to be very, very different. E-commerce is going to be much more important. A digital presence is going to be much, much more important. So dealers have been very receptive to this idea of doorstep test drive, and 74% of the listings this month have been doorstep test drive enabled. Another major thing is doorstep delivery, right? So this is not just the test drive, but once you've bought the vehicle, having the entire final delivery of the vehicle at your doorstep. This one is also gaining traction. About 62% of our listings this month are enabled for doorstep delivery. So, these are all indications that our dealer community, it understands that the business environment is changing. It understands the challenges around COVID, and it also understands that business is going to change forever post-COVID, right? Other initiatives under contactless commerce include full online payment through an escrow mechanism. Earlier, the way we used to operate is, we used to take a token amount or a booking amount, but the final transaction would happen at the with the dealer and the buyer, face to face. Now, since face to face is not really possible or a big challenge, we have been working on a solution that allows the end-to-end transaction amount to be passed online. And the challenges here are kind of specific because of the large amounts involved in a single transaction. So for example, just using credit card would be too expensive, and most people would not even be able to use that. So what are some of the alternate mechanisms that we can enable, right? I think that we have been investing in is around certification of our technicians, fitness certification of our technicians who go to do the inspections of vehicles, right? So every day in the morning when the technician logs on, they have to undergo a fitness or a self-assessment. There's also a digital thermometer that they use to check their temperature. They put that temperature into they answer a set of questions, and only if they pass the checklist, they are onboarded onto the app. And that's what we've been communicating to our customer base also, that we are taking all precautions when it comes to services where one of our technicians needs to be there. One additional thing that we have done, and this has taken off really well, is the concept around monetization of vehicles. So towards the mid of March, we launched a service, a new product called Germ Shield, which is an antimicrobial coating. It's different from other sanitization services, which are like you do it once and the next day again the germs are back, so you have to do it again. This is a coating which sticks to the surface and lasts for 3 months at a time. It forms like microscopic nanoscale spikes on the surface of whatever material it's applied on. And we have so this has been used in the past in use cases like hospitals or other cases, but we have brought it to new use cases like vehicles. We have seen good traction in other areas like elevators and buildings as well. Right. So this is one business which we built from scratch during the time we were in almost like when the dealer base was kind of shut down. And over the last 2 months, we have already reached a revenue run rate of $100,000 per month. It's a small number, but considering that number was 0 2 months back, this is something that we are very, very proud of. So those are some of the initiatives that we have done in the short term and the medium term. In the longer term, our expectation is that there will be more uptake of online. Both our seller community as well as our our end consumers, they understand or they prefer the comfort of doing things from their own, and they're looking for digital services, right? And to enable that on our seller front, we are launching things like we have already launched things like OEM Direct or Dealer Direct, which are direct to consumer offerings, which enables small dealers to digitize their presence and move away from their shop, right? E-commerce is definitely picking up. We have seen it in the numbers, and we expect this trend to continue. In the US, for example, one interesting chart I saw was over the last 20 odd years, the e-commerce share of total commerce had been increased from, let's say, 0% to 17, 18%. But in the last 2-3 months in the COVID era, it jumped from 18% to 27%. Right? We would expect a similar trend to play out in India as well. And that's what we are gearing towards to enable our dealer base to move to a new world, which is more digitally focused and where they can do their business online.
Yeah. Great, Akshay. Thanks, and I surely can understand this whole vehicle business, automobile business. There is going to be a lot more disruption in that as well. And like one of the aspects that I was thinking about was even the role of the dealer per se. Today, even when we go and look out for a new car, we go to a dealer. I somehow feel that maybe in the next few years, maybe the dealer ecosystem may vanish completely. It could be I buying a car directly from the OEM, right? I book a car online, and there's a third party who brings the vehicle to my place. I test it, I like it, and I buy it. Where is the dealer required in between? I mean, just a thought, but I do believe there is a
yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Like if you take example of Tesla in the US, right? Elon Musk, that is what he wants. He wants the entire buyer journey to be completed within 1 minute, right? And they are offering 1 month returns, right? And for them, they are going to move away from a dealer network altogether. They will just have a few fancy showrooms in high traffic areas, in high visibility areas, but that's more for marketing, right? And we expect India to follow in the same path, maybe not so quickly, but yes, eventually we expect that to happen in India as well.
Absolutely, long-term change happening, and maybe it will get expedited because of this whole pandemic around us. So, Sebastian, let me come to you now. I know you've been again waiting for some time. And you are again into execution really, and I'm sure tons of operational issues, business continuity issues, all the issues that everyone spoke about, safety, hygiene, workforce, you name it. I'm sure you faced it all too. So the question to you is that, as much as you would have, tried your best to work, even from a government regulatory standpoint, the local level issues, enforcement issues, last mile delivery issues, and supporting your customers. So what is it that you're seeing as fundamental changes in your business? And not just more immediate set of firefighting that you would have already done, but fundamental shifts in your business. And as some of the other companies, e-commerce companies, or maybe let's say other sectors, FMCG and others, what can they expect, TVS Logistics or TVS Services to do differently going forward?
So thanks, Saurabh. So before I answer the question, I think the panelists have discussed about the challenges that we have faced during this COVID situation. But I kind of will remember this COVID for two basic things. One, in my whole 12-year, 15-year career, I have never had so many people coming and asking me how an Amazon manages to do next day delivery, or how Big Basket ensures this, their kiosks are getting filled every single day, or how Grofers and Swiggy are managing daily deliveries. So I think as a supply chain organization and also as e-commerce, I think this has been a period where we have come to the forefront. I think this activity was taken for granted, and I think during this period, people have become more appreciative of what the e-commerce sector, what supply chain as a service has been able to provide. And I hope this continues beyond COVID. The second thing is that I think some of the panelists also mentioned this. I think when the COVID situation hit everybody, the intentions of all the parties involved was good. Whether it was a customer, whether it was the e-commerce companies, whether it was the 3PL companies, the intention was like, let's figure out and ensure that these essentials reach. All the other things we will discuss later. So for example, I remember cases where TVS, even though we didn't have customers, we were not dealing with certain customers, but we put out all our extra vehicles, empty vehicles, extra manpower. We just circulated out to all customers, e-commerce, non-e-commerce, and then asked them that, you don't have to give us a long-term contract. If you need support for 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, we are there for you. We have this excess capacity, so please use our capacity. And it's not just us. I think a lot of the other 3PL companies also have done this. And that has partly been the reason why, the impact on the essentials has been very less during this period. And I also remember a case where in Jamalpur, I think just behind the TVS warehouse, we had an Amazon warehouse. And when operations were started, their operations started almost 3-4 days before ours. And we couldn't figure out how they managed to get the approvals, and we were not able to get the approvals. And then finally, we just asked our warehouse in charge that please go and ask the Amazon team how they managed it. And they just walked up. The Amazon team there supported us. They told us what is it that they did. And then within 2 days, we also managed to open our warehouse. So these are the two things that I would remember COVID for. And hopefully some of these things continue post-COVID, even after we get back to normal operations. Coming specific to what TVS Supply Chain Solutions did during this period, I think unlike a lot of the organizations in India, we had an inkling of what was coming into India. So we have a significant operation in Wuhan, where a certain back office of ours operates, and certain warehousing also operates out of Wuhan. So we knew that when it hit India, these are the kind of things that our team in China had done, and this is what is going to come and hit us here. So in that sense, in terms of BCP planning, we were well prepared. At least if not for the first week that it was announced, at least by week 2, we were aligned how to provide these services to the customers. The other thing that actually supported us is that nearly 50% of our business, as most of you would know, is non-FMCG, non-e-commerce. So there we had an opposite problem of auto companies, manufacturing companies actually shutting down, and we having all this manpower which was actually not being utilized. So for us, the challenge was how to ensure that manpower which is free, utilize them in the warehouses that are for essential commodities or for e-com who are doing essential commodities. So that was a challenge. So once we finalized how to do the transportation, how to get the local approvals for transporting these manpower, more or less, I think the manpower per se has not been such a big issue for us so far. But as and when now all the operations open up, it might become a bigger issue for us going ahead. The other thing in terms of the operations in warehouses, and especially for e-commerce, FMCG, essential commodities, we always focused on efficiency within a warehouse. And it was always discussions were how many lines per hour can a manpower do, how many DTO orders, RTO orders, what is it that we can execute per person. Now here we were in the COVID condition where virtually all warehouses were with 25% manpower, 50% manpower, and we were stuck on days with 50 pickers, no data entry operators. On certain days, 20 data operators, but no pickers. So this is what the big change has happened for our operations. We have been forced to become more flexible. in terms of everybody being multi-skilled within the warehouse. Overall, the efficiency would have been impacted as of now, but at least we have been working in the last one month to ensure that whatever manpower comes, the customers' services don't stop, or at least the operations don't stop. So in whichever way, at least the operations are continued. So that is the big change that we are seeing, more of flexibility and less focus on efficiency. That is the key difference that we are seeing. And how do we see things changing going ahead? I think for the large e-commerce players and the large customers, I have not seen such a big change happening right now. But for the smaller players, it is becoming slightly challenging. So for a customer who was operating out of one DC for India and trying to do deliveries across India from that one single DC, more and more they are realizing that, that's a very risky proposition to continue with. So we are seeing that they are coming back and asking us, I want to break up that one DC into 2 or 3 DCs, 4 DCs across. Companies who are fulfillment companies and who are delivering to larger e-commerce players, those are the kind of clients that we are seeing suddenly. They were doing a certain category of material, but suddenly now they have realized that, I want to do a little bit of essentials also. I want to do a little bit of cosmetics also. So there is obviously a mixed change that is happening for these fulfillment players who are delivering to larger e-commerce players. In terms of how a logistics company would operate going forward, I think flexibility is something that all players will expect as a 3PL for us to bring about, and we are not getting clear signals in terms of volumes when it will go back to normal. So as of now, I think flexibility is the key mantra that we are focusing on. And I don't see that changing, at least for the next 2 to 3 months. Going forward, I think then I think what will happen is that we will go, instead of looking at e-commerce as a complete end-to-end offering, we will be looking at specific categories. I think essentials and grocery, how they would react will be very different to how an apparel company would react in the next 2-3 months. Will be very different to how an FMCD company who has a significant e-commerce presence will react in the next 2-3 months. So I think there would be a period of this uncertainty. And as a 3PL organization, all that we are doing is we are preparing ourselves to, move in any direction as and when this shift happens.
Great, Savishan. I think flexibility is the word, and I'm sure your customers would also be expecting equal amount of flexibility for you to, provide them trucks or place the trucks, when they need it, long hauls, last mile, wherever, etc. And also, even your operational flexibility as well to maybe refocus your strategy depending on how things evolve. One learning I remember speaking to another 3PL was, especially around this whole workforce issue, was that company focused a lot more on getting son of soil employed in that location. And what I remember hearing from that gentleman was that because a lot of population employed in their warehousing or transportation was people who were like son of soil in that area, so they didn't face too many issues. Of course, issues were faced, but not too many issues in terms of migration and let's say people really not being available to run the show on a daily basis. So
Saurabh, I'll just add to that. So we had a major competitor of ours, a 3PL organization, which has a warehouse very close to Bhiwandi. We also have a warehouse very close to them. And unfortunately, even though we had approvals for opening the warehouse, the local panchayats won't allow us to open. And at some point, all of us decided, all the 3PLs in that area decided that we'll go up to the local panchayat together. And in the end, it was exactly what you said. They asked us that at least 25% of the manpower has to be from the local village. And they asked us to support them in essentials or delivering essentials to the village. And this was again a time where both customers and the 3PL players, all of us to work together. And luckily today, all those warehouses are open.
No, great, Sebastian. Thank you so much. Absolutely agree to that. Let me turn to Amit now. Amit, technology, role of technology, and everyone did speak about, the acceleration possibly in the role of technology and the investments possibly a lot of organizations did towards that. My question to you is that, we've also been talking about huge amount of scenario planning, simulation, but tell me, an issue like this or a pandemic like this, how good are those scenarios that we built earlier? And number two, in terms of the role of technology in the future, what kind of asks or use cases or new ideas, opportunities you are hearing from your customers, and especially if you can take up examples of e-commerce play, I think that would be more useful.
Sure. Thanks, Saurabh. So just to introduce my organization where I'm working, we essentially help organizations chart out their planning journey across supply chain, finance, and sales. And that's where we are kind of seeing a lot of uptake of technology in the current scenario. And I think one underlying fact is that nobody anticipated any of this in the past, and there is no precedence of any activity, right? So the closest I think we can typically talk about is maybe the SARS, which had a little bit of disruption, but never on the scale that it has impacted organizations today. It was a very regional kind of impact, and most companies didn't really have a plan around it. All the planning in most organizations were related to the fundamentals of their activity. For example, your supply chain fundamentals. And I did hear Rohit talk about that organization that were lean kind of had a problem in today's scenario, right? So the whole focus was to be as lean as possible, as just in time as possible, pick up those concepts. And all the focus on plan was in either ways kind of linked to what has happened in the past, right? So history was driving a lot of our planning for the future, right? What categories are essentially growing, what products are essentially moving faster, how much should be a replenishment cycle kind of stuff. And all of a sudden we saw a business where you can't really look back and say, hey, give me an indication of what's going to happen next week kind of stuff. Right? So in this scenario, what we've seen is the organization had to come up very quickly to come with an alternative options, right? What if we are able to do this? Now that kind of threw a couple of challenges for the organization, right? One is that we're not really tuned to being able to churn out things very quickly, right? The data is not really in one place. There was some organization which had already kind of climbed certain level of IT investments, I would say. And e-commerce, particularly in that area, are very well placed, I would say, compared to your counterparts, which are still kind of operating in the traditional retail channel. Right? So you already had at least some data, and I heard some of you talk about the fact that you are tracking the amount of time it's essentially taking for you to deliver a particular amount of goods. And then you can quickly work back and say that, hey, if my time is going to cut down by, let's say, 50%, I automatically, my capacity to deliver is essentially doubled up, right? Or if some of the other constraints which are there in the business have still got impacted, I am still able to kind of cater to an X percentage, right? 100% of a pre-COVID kind of situation. So that was the first layer that we saw of organizations reacting to that. And we work with a whole host of organizations in e-commerce, traditional retail, automobile, and others. And we saw that the e-commerce probably are the ones who kind of reacted faster. I think for them, the advantage also was that a lot of channels were open to them compared to the traditional where the dealers were kind of stuck, the warehouses are kind of locked in, factories are not operating kind of stuff. So there was a long time that the other have taken to kind of come to a stage where e-commerce companies kind of started reacting, I would say, even on the week one or the day one of essentially lockdown. But looking at what companies need to do, and particularly from an e-commerce perspective, is we are essentially in the stage of recovery, as I call it, right? So you've kind of tackled the primary issues that you had, right? Labor not being available. How do I get, for example, my new supply chain, setting up dark stores that I heard about, PPE equipment, so on and so forth. So you've kind of covered the first important requirement, which was to get your fundamentals of businesses in place, right? The second part essentially comes in to say that, hey, what insight can you draw off this? And then how are you able to recover your business beyond it? One of the things that I believe that companies also have to look in e-commerce is that this opportunity that you've got today will actually draw in competition also. It's not that people who have been impacted big time by this, for example, the retail customers, and one of the customers that I'm working with, all their stores have been closed, right? And their planning has gone back to a very basic plan to say that, hey, when can we open, who will walk in, and how much will I be able to sell, right? So they're not even looking at things that you talked about, like recategorization of products or what to sell or the top hundreds kind of stuff. No? They're down to the very basics of saying that, hey, can I open my shop, essentially, because they've taken, let's say, a strategy of putting that in the malls and others. Right? For you, the advantage would be you've done that cover, but now be ready for the next wave where there will be new entrants which is coming into the market. So the ability to quickly plan, and what we do believe is that the traditional methods of planning, whether it's on the supply chain fundamental side of it, is kind of really gone away, right? We now need to look at a lot of insights which is coming out of business and an external insight also. And then come up with those catalyst kind of movements and say that, hey, if we do this, this is what going to be impact, and have those options kind of ready in an organization. And we will not have enough time to be able to do that in a traditional manner. That is where tools like Anaplan are essentially coming in very quickly, and we've been able to deliver for one of this customer in 3 weeks time, right? So think of your scenario or a business problem scenario where you did not have anything in place to be able to evaluate and react in a situation, and then being able to do that in a 3 weeks kind of time. And that is where we're trying to help our organization that we're using us to say, hey, how can you come up with those plans very quickly? And a lot of things that I heard from all of you in the panel is around that itself, right? We heard about the fact that there was no playbook, right? And then how do you essentially come up with those options? That is my essential thought around it, that digital transformation is going to happen, and it's going to, the pace of that is going to continue much faster. E-commerce definitely has a big advantage, and I was reading a report that the gap between the IT spend on a traditional retail-based company versus an e-commerce is about $100 billion, right? So that is the difference or the advantage that you essentially have at this point of time. But that difference will, over a period of time, grow up. So I'm quite sure all the other organizations which are not represented here are definitely looking at you and what you have done and move up the chain. So they may either get into your businesses, they may change their business to kind of open different channels, whether it's on the web or the e-commerce channel and still the retail channel. And for e-commerce company, it becomes now very important to actually chart their next way forward, right? You have kind of proven your business model in this kind of scenario. Now, how do you take your business ahead? How do you bring in that kind of collaboration within your businesses to say that, hey, now we've done the first phase of it or the second phase of it. How do we ensure that our trajectory kind of continues ahead in the same order? So that would be some of my thoughts, Saurabh, around it.
So, thanks, Amit. Absolutely. Even across the board, when I work with companies across sectors, so one good thing that I see is companies are not holding back onto their investments around technology or digitization efforts. So, which is a sign, or an indicator I also see with the clients across different sectors, even though there is a stress in some of those sectors, which is significant. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is, I'm also doing a time check. Maybe we'll have another, I would say, 20 odd minutes in this discussion, and we'll try to wrap up maybe around 4:10 or so. Possibly going beyond the time. I think the way I possibly want to do this next quick discussion is maybe 2 minutes, with each one of you. Maybe I can start with Prakash, you first. The first, and there are two parts to the question. The first one is, do you think this whole, there's been a set of learnings, set of, day-to-day issues, and we've possibly, will come out, I would say, with much more wisdom, once this pandemic ends. But from a consumer angle, do you see the Indian consumer changing post COVID? One, and number two, as you also a supply chain professional. What are those three, key initiatives or priorities that you are building out for yourself, to implement, to enhance possibly your resilience of your supply chain or reliability of your supply chain post COVID? So those are the two parts of question. I'll request maybe take about 2 odd minutes, little here, there, to answer that. Prakash, you're on mute.
I'll unmute myself. Sorry.
Yes.
So I'll just start with a quote, what Jeff Bezos spoke about. is like, although these are incredibly difficult times, they are an important reminder that what we do as a company can make a big difference in people's lives. Customers count on us to be there as a company, and we are fortunate to be able to help. So I think that's the starting point. Is going to remain for some time. That's how I think about. I think our philosophy of our strategy of selection, value, and convenience is going to be more relevant than ever in the post-COVID times. And we continue to index on enabling Indian customers to safety and conveniently buy anything that they need from anywhere in the India and anytime. So online shopping is going to be the safest option, right? If you have to think about it, both from a customer's employee's point of view, it dramatically limits the interaction between people. It's going to keep people safe. And if it is going to continue, and if you have to practice social distancing in the next, I don't know how many months, but if that is a thing, then online is going to be a thing. And you'll have to be, again, I'm getting back to the same old point about flexibility and being nimble and being thoughtful about what customers want. And as a company, we have always believed in the DNA of going customer backwards, whether it is the end customers, whether the sellers, and that's the thing that we have been seeing about it, right? There are a couple of examples I just want to talk about. Is the BMC, we got into containment zones in Mumbai, and we did a quick one. So these things are going to continuously happen where the delivery is at the periphery of the containment zone, and the customers were given triggers to come at the periphery and pick it up. We have been able to, Pantry is a local network. We have been able to get into a regional network where Bombay was severely constrained in terms of containment zone. We could immediately switch our delivery network from Hyderabad, where we had surplus capacity, to Mumbai. We could do that. We enabled railways to be able to tap onto some speed capacity. We have to scale up capacity. We have gone on to 50,000 associates we are hiring in the next couple of weeks. So this is there to scale up the business, and that is going to be there. I don't want to speculate what is going to happen and not happen, but what I can surely say, Saurabh, is the things are changing. Customers are looking for different ways of buying, and I'm sure online and e-commerce is going to play an important role in keeping associates, customers, everybody in the ecosystem safe, and we'll have to keep reinventing. So that's my line of thought. I hope I finished in a couple of minutes.
Just on that one, so will we see a lot more Amazon's private labels, a lot more visible going forward, or
I can't say. I don't want to. It's see, we are a customer backwards company, and we'll see how the things shape up. If Essentials is going to be driven, it's not like what we want to do. It's what customers want us to do. And what the government and the authorities want us to do. And if that is the way we need to approach, we'll work backwards and make our processes or inventory or the sellers aligned to be able to make that happen. So that's the approach. Yep.
No, thanks, Prakash. I really love that part of customer backwards. I think that's a great approach. I guess we, all of us, including, let's say, if I talk about myself as in PwC as a partner, then it's again client backwards. So we do, and today I think a lot of time we are also spending is really focusing on that to see how client needs are shifting, and therefore what is it that they would expect, for us to come up with what kind of solutions going forward. Thanks for that, great insights, Prakash. Let me again maybe go in a similar sequence. Sarvata, to you. Again, two parts of the question similar. The first is the range of categories you also have. So are you focusing on a few categories, where you see certain significant shifts going forward, which will outplay others? Number one. Number two, again, top three priorities that you would lay out for Snapdeal to enhance supply chain resilience, reliability, in the eyes of the customer.
Yep. So I would probably say, to begin with, the consideration set is certainly changing. Based on what we've seen the customers historically buying and not now what they're preferring to buy, there is definite shift in terms of the categories that were being top selling before and what is top selling right now. Right? So that's certainly changing. I believe right now, with the current restrictions on travel, movement, and all of the other challenges that the customers are facing, their focus and their spend is more focused towards items that kind of make their life easier and work from home easier and give them more of family time and good time, where they can spend a lot of time ensuring that they have meaningful conversations and games and many other things that kind of bond the family together. Right? I think that's something that's a very, very, very subtle shift that we see in terms of how people are approaching the buying. Other than that, I think from supply chain perspective, if you ask me what are the top 3 things that's on top of my mind is one thing is certainly that while we all do that very well, it's something that's not new to people, but I think it in a way this entire episode has reinforced the importance of regional and local fulfillment, right? How restrictions on movement and how the limitations on services kind of can be mitigated through more of local and regional fulfillment is something that has just re-emphasized itself and has ensured that we understand the importance of that as well. So as you understand, Snapdeal is a pure play marketplace. It's more about not having our sourcing in a certain region, but ensuring that we have suppliers available across the country to ensure that the quality and the assortment can be maintained across. Right? And given that we are also outsourced to a big extent in terms of our logistics, it's also very important that Snapdeal drive deeper integrations in terms of technology with the partners to be able to reconcile shipments which are in transit, right? I mean, one thing that this entire epidemic did is crores worth of inventories got stuck, and ensuring that we are able to track and trace each one of them with our partners was also an important activity, and it took us some muscle power to figure that out rather than the technology helping us. So there I feel technology would definitely play an important role, and we would be focusing on ensuring that we build that. Last but not the least, I think me and Rohit were talking about it in the beginning. I think the importance of digital payments is definitely has risen more than ever in today's contactless environment, and providing digital payment options at doorstep is also something that we should think of from a logistics service provider. While the prepaid percentages would have gone up significantly for all the players, I'm pretty sure, but even when there is a cash on delivery, and if you can offer a digital payment option to the customer at the doorstep, that itself will change a lot of things in terms of the efficiencies and the way the process is designed today. So top 3 things for me are these. I hope I've completed it.
Thanks, Savartha. Great thoughts. Actually, the whole family, bonding aspect, is evolving and changing. And I can also tell you that, once e-commerce started delivering, I also bought a game of a Ludo and a chess for myself at home, and then now I use it, which I hadn't done for so many years in my last 20 years. I hadn't done that. Just on that point of, I think local play and technology, of course, goes without saying. And I see a lot of organizations, even non-e-commerce organizations, whether they have their own e-shop or regular FMCG business. I think that whole control tower, trying to create that whole end-to-end visibility, which is a lot more real-time. Absolutely, I think companies are investing behind that. And again, there are great startups who are out there also who bring in a lot of that solutions, of course, besides a lot of mature players in the market. So yeah, time is ripe to go behind technology and get those investments going. Okay, great. So let me move on to Mr. Nagaraju. Mr. Nagaraju, again on similar lines, I think my first question to you is more around the whole safe packaging, hygiene, those kind of aspects, because especially in food and grocery, it's a very, very important requirement which will be there, and that whole customers would need confidence that yes, my product was handled well, and because I'm going to be consuming it. So that is one part, and how as Big Basket you are focusing on that, evolving that whole process. Second is also those 3 key priorities focused on supply chain resilience and reliability. So what these are the 2 questions to you.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Saurabh. So yes, one thing about Big Basket is, right from day one, we have always been in essentially in food and grocery or kitchen related things. So we were always covered by the rules of FSSAI and so on, so that food safety was always a fundamental compliance which we always took into account in the storage of the goods and then handling of the goods and so on. And the second part is especially our fruits and vegetable operations, which involve really fresh products. They need special handling. And we also have certain operations where we do processing, like packing of fruits. And we also have operations where certain fruits and vegetables are also offered in, cut vegetables and cut fruits. And so that these almost come like a food processing line. So whatever regulations which we always had, we continues to have. So that was not really an issue. But however, obviously during these pandemic times, and we ensured that all the people who are assisting these operations, all the way starting from security down the end, people at the inbound unloading, and even vendors who unload, all of them had to go through certain standard protocols and safety precautions. And we are generously offering, even if some of the vendors do not have any of these, we are generously giving them masks, and we are giving them gloves and so on, so that there is absolutely there is 100% compliance of these COVID related new safety protocols that we ourselves have implemented. So that is one. And secondly, we have also worked with some of our investors on some of the best practices that that are available from around the world, and what we could do in terms of sanitization of our facilities, considering that we are storing the food products. Are there something that we can, for example, spray, which is safe for the food and so on? That is one thing. And we got some excellent suggestions from some of our investors, like Alibaba and CDC and others, which IFC also, which we are trying to implement inside our facility to make it more and more better. The third point is we are also sanitizing all our crates. You must be knowing that Big Basket delivers in crates to customers' homes. So we are investing. We have already invested, but we are now trying to make sure that we have better machines available, which will have a better throughput to ensure that earlier what we used to sanitize, maybe once in 4 days, 5 days, we are sanitizing them much more often. One is cleaning and then sanitizing. Both. We are sanitizing and cleaning these crates much more often. So these are some of the things we are taking to ensure that customer has full confidence that when we are delivering, they can be sure that there is no issue at all. That's one. And quickly jumping on to your other thing, and what are the 3 priorities for our company? This pandemic has definitely given us a wake-up call on how we should perhaps focus more on the human capital, because at the end of the day, we employ a considerable number of blue-collar workers. So while we have always been having a good employee oriented policies, in fact, we always had a complete term and life insurance for the guy. Health is taken care of for him and his family, whether they are a picker or a loader or a delivery boy, all these, including those who are working on their own, like direct contract, or because entrepreneurial bikers and van drivers. We always provided these facilities to them. But this time we went a step further and immediately worked out a health policy to cover even corona virus, just in case they are stuck. Whatever expenses they may need to go out of pocket, or in a hospital or whatever, we said we will pay up to some limit. So that is something we have taken care. And this is going to be a continuous focus going forward, because at the end of the day, initially when we were exposed with less people, we realized, this is an important thing we need to continuously focus on. That we will do. Second thing is, all the process improvements I said earlier that we did have also given us a confidence that we have to make this agility the new normal. We should be able to come out with new processes or new improvements to always get more productivity or managing more with less. That kind of a thing we are going to do. And like Mr. Amit had pointed out earlier, what we have actually developed during this last 8 weeks or so is actually a playbook of certain scenario-based solutions. So saying that in Jaipur you are facing this problem, okay, you implement this way. Should be this way, and then capacity loading should be this way, rostering of the people should be this way. Now in Chennai you have a different problem, then what we should do on the process side, what configurations, what parameters we need to change. So we are developing a playbook, and we realize that this is very important, in order that we are able to react much better and faster in future, just in case. So we are creating a playbook of multiple scenario-based solutions and features. Third point is partnering. This also, and it was nice to hear TVS Logistics, Sebastian, talking about how they offered many vehicles. In fact, we were overwhelmed with such offers, whether it is Uber or a Zoom or many AAAs, even in small transporters in multiple smaller cities. They came forward to say that just use our vehicles as long as you are delivering essentials. It was such a touching thing to see even small transporters offering their services, and they were saying you use them free of charge. It was amazing. This is the first time we realized that partnering with 3PL in a genuine, sincere way is a great way we need to do it. So what we have decided is, therefore, we are going to again create certain features in our solution, in our partnering onboarding side, in such a way that we are able to partner with different types of people, whether it is organized players or semi-organized smaller players, how to partner in faster and quicker, in a mutually beneficial way. And this partnering will also continue with our vendors. Some people pointed out, a lot of these FMG players, their factories were shut down and they were opening slowly. So that's when we realized that we also need to go out of the way. For example, we said that you tell us what is available, we will place orders, instead of we placing orders and then cribbing that they're not supplying. So we started getting into demand supply matching in a different way. We started sending our vehicles because government was allowing big basket to run vehicles. So we ran our vehicles to go and pick up from factories. That is another thing we do. Yeah. And we also help some of the smaller players who are producing, our labels there. They could not get immediate help, or they did not know how to restart their factories. So we went and then, connected them with government agencies. And so partnering as a concept, very in a genuine, sincere fashion is going to be an important thing. And the last point I would deal with also, this whole episode of last 8 weeks has taught us tremendously in each of our local captains, whether in multiple cities and even within cities in multiple hubs and facilities, how to manage, how to deal with civil servants, how to deal with police. If we do it in a genuine fashion with sincerity, we found that government is responding in a very, very positive way. I mean, this is a great learning to see that police officers, very senior police officers, are so professional. Earlier obviously at a hub level or a facility level, people would not be comfortable dealing with police officers. But this time we found that they were extremely helpful and they were very, very forthright. They were helping. So I think this has opened a lot of possibilities to work with multiple stakeholders within the society as well. I think we will use some of these learnings as we move forward.
Wonderful, very, very positive note from you, Mr. Nagaraju. Definitely, it definitely opens a lot of possibilities. And even personally at PwC also, we've been working very closely with the government, for this kits distribution and many other such issues with the COVID times. And the kind of professionalism that you see at ICMR and some of the other bureaucrats, actually from a distance you feel differently, but they're really, really professional. They really want to genuinely, make a difference, in the current set of issues as well.
Absolutely. Saurabh, if you just leave me 30 seconds, I want to leave with one more small story. That is, when this whole thing started, right, our operations were affected. I was telling about our workforce, almost went down to 720 30%. But one unique problem that I faced was, you must be knowing, for all e-commerce companies, customer support is very important. Now, in my current role at Big Basket, I also manage a large customer support team of almost 1,400 people in 3 cities, which is Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Pune. Now, here the problem was we didn't lose these people, but there was no offices to to resume the operations. They said you have to close down, and they were not listening initially. The police and other. They said you have to shut down. You're not allowed to run any operation. So we're wondering, for an e-commerce, say customer support is the only way in which customer can, come to for any issue. So we had to immediately, within 4-5 days, find a solution to make sure that each and every one of my customer support agents were able to work from their homes. This was a phenomenal project we pulled across within 4-5 days, and ensured that out of the 1,200 agents, almost 1,100 agents in all the cities were working from home. If they had a laptop and a broadband, great. Otherwise, we said, take this PC and go home and start working. And then we generously help them with broadband connections and whatnot. This is another, thing which we never imagined, where the problem was not having people, but we had to do something else to get the CS show going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. I think that is why we call this as the new normal. I think this has broken so many myths of what we used to have earlier of confidentiality of data systems and many other things, people productivity, people spending time on Netflix and not working. I think it has broken tons of those myths, etc. So let me move to Rohit now. Rohit, this whole new normal, that we just spoke about. So what's going to be the new normal for your organization, and 3 priorities from a supply chain perspective? You are on mute, Rohit. Rohit, you're on mute.
Sorry, Saurabh. I short sentence, I'll repeat it. As I said, right, I and my whole organization, we prefer the old normal, right? Let us be clear on that. We like the playing field as it was. And we sincerely, dearly hope that the world will find a way past, this pesky little, microbe, right? I am not about to hazard a guess as to how long it will take, right? But whenever that happens, we always prefer a straight fight, right? A level playing field. Right? This one isn't, right? So don't like it. Not also because as someone else was saying, right? This limits choices for customers. We believe that one of our priorities will always be to enhance the choices available to our customers, whether it is in terms of the speed with which they get to buy their merchandise, or the range that we offer them. Right? We are in that business. We want to pamper our customers silly. This is an impediment, right? So we'll obviously continuously look to sidestep these impediments. But they are an impediment, right? And I'm not personally looking forward to a perpetuation of social distancing, right? As I'm pretty sure our customers are. Right? So let me just be upfront about that. I think whether we like it or not, things will change, right? We've been humbled with the amount of interest and just the amount of asks that have been placed at our doorstep, right? And not just by our end customers, but by our partners, by communities, by the government of that area, honored, humbled. So we do, I think, and that is where our next steps come from, right? We will continue to expand and with a new zeal. Right? So we are already in 30 plus cities. I can't give you a number right now, but expect it to grow manifold. Because again, I can't name any specific cities. My own hometown, right, doesn't have Grow First service, right? It hurt, right? I wanted to be able to serve people there. So anyway, so our footprint will continue to expand, and we will do this on the back of our old partnerships, which are very robust, but also new partnerships which we acquired during this time, right? So like Jasmeet is there. Moglix is the partner that supplies us those biodegradable packaging, containers, right? Yeah, little known fact, we couldn't have done this without them, right? So we will continue to invest powerfully, meaningfully in these partnerships, because they are what define us. They are what make us successful out there. We don't do it all by ourselves. All our every single one of our partners. So we'll expand on our footprint in the number of cities that we cover, and we will expand, in terms of our network, the partner network that we have. So we work with, a number of logistics companies. We work with companies like Moglix. I was listening with keen interest to what Akshay was saying, right? That how Droom has kind of gone past the barriers and done a new germ-proofing solution for facilities. I may give him a call next thing that you know, right? So, and we keep looking for this partnership. We don't have the answers to everything, right? That's one. I think the next big challenge is supervisory presence on the floor is at a premium today. Anyone who's senior enough is sitting at home. Anyone who's unfortunately junior enough has to be out on the floor, minding the Janta class. Right? See, these are the uncomfortable truths, right? But we have to acknowledge that. And I'm not saying that all the VPs and SVPs start trooping out and start attending trips at warehouses. I'll stop short of saying that. But what I do know is that if we can't make it ourselves, then something needs to do our jobs, right? So technology doing the job. Supply chains are about delivering material on time, in full, accurately invoiced. Very, very simple, right? It's a simple job. It's been that way since Roman times. So on time, customers are willing to cut you some slack. In full, nobody will ever cut you slack, right? Supply chains are not supposed to eat material during transit, right? Or leak material during transit. But you never know, right? The kind of stuff that we handle, right? Shipping grocery is way, way more complex than shipping mobiles across the length and breadth of this country, right?
Yeah.
And so technology plays a huge role in the way that we do it today. It will play an even bigger role. So we during this period, we've had 17 major tech releases, right? And so that tells you how much extra focus has gone into tech, right? And minus these changes, we would have been flying blind, right? In some parts, right? So technology across doing recos across every handover. Sarwarth already touched upon the digital payments piece. Very soon our customers will basically have the choice right until the last second to switch to a contactless mode, right? But I also want to go out on a limb and say we will fight very hard and we will work very hard to preserve the option for customers to pay in cash, right? We believe there are people out there for whom going to an ATM is a traumatic experience, right? We can't make choices on behalf of customers. We are happy to adjust, right? I think the last bit is going out on a limb, but I'm saying there are old institutions like the public distribution systems that were set up in probably somewhere around independence time, right? The ration shops. Change is coming their way, right? I don't think those things will survive the test of time. Those foundations have become really, really shaky, and so I don't mind going out on a limb and saying we want to be the public distribution system of this country, right? That's our big focus. We want to be the company that you count on, and necessarily it pegs us, more towards Bharat than towards India. Happy being that, right? We want to be a utility more than a luxury.
That's a very powerful statement, Rohit. You want to be the PDA system in the country, and I guess it pretty much goes in with the call of the government as well, right? Atam Nirbhar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I stay carefully away from associating politically on one side or the other. so you understand, right? I support things that I like. Let's just leave it at that. I think the government of the day has some great opportunities looking at it, right? Wanting its attention. It will do well to grab them with both hands. They can move this country forward.
Absolutely, Rohit. So I mean, hopefully, I think some of what you said definitely is important, and I think the partnership point, I think again that came up the second time, and this is something again is a very core theme right now, where whether working with the logistics partners or your suppliers or your workforce, your contract labor provider, I think creating those partnerships is really the core, and I think that's where the whole human element, the longevity of relationship, all of that comes to the fore, and it's going to be really critical for any organization to perform or outperform. I think one success mantra is going to be the partnerships that you enable. Great, Rohit. Thanks for that.
Yeah, give me another 10 seconds, right? I'm saying is, we don't have all the answers, right? Most people don't have all the answers. We are happy to tap into expertise wherever it is available. Because the task we are setting up for ourselves is a big one, is an ambitious one, right? It'll take many smart minds, many diligent organizations to get what we want to get done.
No, absolutely, it will take time. Okay, great. Jasmeet, I know we are over time, but again, I'll request maybe 1 or 2 minutes for each one of you. Sorry for that. But Jasmeet, your 3 key top priorities, post-COVID, or rather, we continue to live with COVID. So what are those 3 priorities that you're looking to go ahead and do for Moglix? Jasmeet, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'll make this quick, Saurabh. I think this is definitely going to fuel, digital procurement in the B2B space, which is extremely insignificant compared to what the way consumers are purchasing online. On the B2B, it's still insignificant. So this is good for us. This is good for the country. USA has done that. Singapore has done that. There are few catalogs in the country. And see, our challenge has always been, how do we standardize all these items which exist by different names? They may be similar items, but they are used or called differently by different organizations. So I think this will also lead to a single catalog, for the entire MRO kind of piece, which is extremely, exciting. We still have organizations where they don't, want to, procure all these things digitally, and they still believe in, office mein milna, chai pina, and, do all that paperwork. There's a lot of inefficiencies on the B2B side. I think this is the starting point for complete digital transformation. And I think if you ask me, our priority or our single focus apart from customers will be to be the catalog for India. I think that is something which will help the industry, and it will help the customers. I think that will be our single biggest priority.
Wonderful. I'm surely hearing a lot of powerful stuff and insightful stuff on this discussion, coming in right from the partnerships down to the new PDS for the country and now the catalog for India. Wonderful. And maybe that's a great vision to have, certainly, Jasmeet. So let me, turn to Akshay. your top 2-3 initiatives, priorities from here on.
Sure. So I'll try to be brief because even in my earlier comments, I covered some of these. So, going forward, the consumer behavior is changing quite a bit. Buying of vehicles is going to be more important than ride sharing or or using public transport. I think there is a consumer sentiment moving towards that. Buying of used vehicles will get a boost because of the uncertainty in the economic conditions, right? Some people have lost their jobs, not sure how long they will have business, etc. So used vehicles will get a boost compared to new vehicles. And obviously, one thing that most of the other lists have echoed is that buying online will get a boost. Right. So keeping these in mind, the three initiatives that we are focusing on, and I've touched upon these in the earlier, are contactless commerce, which is enabling the end-to-end delivery of a vehicle to your doorstep without you ever having to step outside your home. Then enabling our supply side to succeed in the digital world through our initiatives like dealer direct-to-consumer sales and online sales. Then also, to make the consumers feel safe about the products that they're buying, making sure that the vehicles or the other products that they're getting, they're sanitized or germ shielded. So those are the three big initiatives for us in the short term.
Thanks, Akshay. I'm sure you will also come out of this whole scenario much more stronger, and with some of these new innovations, you can possibly also accelerate, your initiatives as well. Okay, Sebastian, quickly from you as well. I think again you are the bedrock for a lot of companies, to enable goods really reaching the end customer. So, what is it that you are focusing on, doing differently post-COVID?
So, Saurabh, I'll keep it short. I think the first thing in terms of the business pivot, there's obviously a greater focus on e-commerce and grocery and essentials as a sector. We are not sure about how the other sectors recover, but there is a certain amount of certainty that this sector would recover the fastest. So in terms of how we grow business, there is obviously a focus on this area. In terms of operations, like I said, agility, flexibility, that is again a key focus area. Multi-skilling people within warehousing and upskilling our warehouse in charges and your supervisors, because all this while we were working on centralizing power at one location, and now suddenly the opposite has happened where a warehouse in charge has to practically run operations himself without any supports coming from the corporate office. So that decentralization of power is something that we are going to do aggressively going forward. The last area is, I think, in the e-commerce supply chain part. Traditionally, there have been a lot of players who have been good at DC operations, people who have been good at first mile, last mile, and then also people who have specialized in last mile operations. So what has happened is sometimes the customers have struggled because any one of this chain have failed during COVID, and that has impacted people's supply chain. So the DC might have worked, but the last mile guy could not bring people. So I think there is going to be a greater push from the customer on people taking up this ownership end to end. And I think we are foreseeing that happening, and we kept away from certain capabilities for a long period of time. I don't think we can afford to do that. So these capability gaps that we have in the end-to-end supply chain, I think we will have to build those capabilities in the next 6 months.
Great, thanks, Sebastian. So bridging the capability gap, and I think the whole decentralized operating model, surely is going to be the key to success going forward, because you really can't continue to drive everything centrally, because there's so much of dynamic and evolving scenario all around us. Great points. Amit, last 1 minute to you. Key message, technology, what more?
Yeah, so I think one of the fundamentals what we will see now is that going back to some of the basic planning that needs to be done on an organization. I think in the growth time, the good times, I think execution takes the leading seat. I think this is a time where a lot of organizations will sit back and look at their plans and say that, hey, if this has impacted us, what will be the next one that will come and hit us? What's the next black swan event? So I think some of the things that we have forgotten in the past, which is to have a good plan in place, will kind of take a little bit more, will kind of come up higher in people's agenda. And I think that's where we see a lot of change happening now. And we are kind of in the right position to help organizations get ready for that. That would be my closing comments around that.
Great. Thanks, Amit. Yeah, I think we all will be better prepared. And I think possibly given this whole epidemic, the playbook that everyone would create can actually turn out to be the master playbook for all kind of disruptions in the future, because I'm sure this is going to be the disruption, and then some of the other disruptions will not be as significant in the future, hopefully. Okay, with that, I think we pretty much come to the close of this discussion. I know we've overstretched the timeline that was there, but surely it was a very, very engaging discussion, great insights, and certainly great experiences, that you all shared. And I'm very certain that there must be certain takeaways for each one of us coming in from others' experience. Just last word from my side. I really wish you all the best, and I'm sure in your respective businesses, and as professionals, supply chain professionals as well, you will come out much stronger, and maybe there'll be new innovative things we'll all end up doing successfully going forward. Thank you very much, and really appreciate your time over the last couple of hours sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saurav. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much. ED team, you want to say anything before we close? Karan?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you all for your thoughts, your deliberations, and for taking time out of your schedules to be here with us. Like Saurav rightly pointed out, very eye-opening pointers that all of you all raised. And thanks all of you all for being here with us. That's it pretty much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, and take care. Stay safe.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.